And welcome to all you folks here in the room. We're just going to take a few minutes of your time to fill you in on what the graduate programs are that we're offering next year for the graduate programs in the Faculty of Education. Just a reminder that if you're interested in the counseling sessions, that's actually the next session at 1 o'clock next door. Okay, so hopefully everybody's here for the Master of Education program. Just wanted to remind everybody that we have been offering graduate programs in the Faculty of Education for more than 30 years, so this certainly isn't something that's new hat to us. And for next year, we wanted to let you know that we've got in the Master of Education program the major in educational leadership, and we also have an MEd General with the literacy in globalized Canadian classrooms. And both of these cohorts that we're offering for next year are 25 months in duration. Both of these programs that we're going to be offering next year are blended delivery, so really that means that it's flexible for you folks when you're trying to maintain jobs. You know, they're designed for you as working professionals. They give you the flexibility to stay working and still complete a master's program. So the components that are required, there's a summer session on campus in July, so you'd be on campus for about 3 weeks in July. And then the remainder of the year, you would actually just be completing your coursework online. Okay, so that flexibility is definitely something that we hear great things about from our students and our graduates. In terms of an overview of what the programs look like, again, we've got the summer sessions, the cohorts. The cohort model is something that really leads to success in student programming. It's a model that we've been using for quite some time in the Faculty of Education now, and it really allows you, so there's typically a cohort of up to about 20 students in each learning group, and what that means is you're not learning just from your faculty members, but you're getting that diversity of experience from all those cohort members. They can be, they can be attending from national, international. Typically, though, students are from around Alberta, but even within the province, there's great diversity of experience in terms of where they're teaching and what their experiences are. These are definitely course-based programs, so you're going to be part of a program that is designed to get you through. They're designed thoughtfully, so the content builds upon itself as you go through the program. And it's aligned with the field of study. So the two programs that we're talking about today are quite different. They're each designed to be specific to that particular area of study. And we're lucky enough to have some faculty members here to speak about that later if you have questions. Okay, in terms of the degree requirements, the coursework, as I mentioned, it is a course-based program. So you will take Common Core courses and electives. So there's a total of 11 courses that are required in program. And then you do have the option of the culminating activity. And so a capstone is a 1-course equivalent, a project is a 2-course equivalent, or a thesis, which is a 4-course equivalent. So for individuals who are wanting to focus more on the research end of things and potentially wanting to go on to PhD, the thesis would definitely be a good option for that. Okay, and what everybody really wants to know is how much does it cost, right? So currently the program, including all of your coursework, so that includes the 11 courses and a capstone, is $10,500 total. So that includes the program fees and the course fees. So that's not inclusive of things like textbooks, the Graduate Students Association fee, some of those either like admin fees, things like that. So that does add up to several $1,000s more throughout the course of your program, but $10,500 covers your actual program. Okay, and to help you pay for that program, first of all, you can always count that tuition towards a tax credit. Okay, so you are able to actually utilize that on your income tax, so that does help you out. And as well, we're able to support students to the tune of about $120,000, $140,000 is pretty typical in a year that we give out to our just the students entering the program. That's just to the Master of Education and Master of Counseling students. So we typically take in about 60 to 80 students a year, and we're handing out well over $100,000 to those students. And in addition, if you're working as a teacher, you may not want to take us up on the opportunity of applying for a graduate assistantship, but there is funding available if you wanted to work. It's about 8 hours a week that you would be working with a faculty member to support their research, and that does provide several $1,000s per term to help with your cost of program. That's if you have time. If you're maintaining your position in your schools, then it's not necessarily feasible to try and take that on. Okay, so specific to the Educational Leadership Program, again, it's a cohort-based program. The program is geared towards the school leadership standards, and that's something that is in the works in terms of the province, from what I hear. And I should mention as well that Pam Adams will be coming up from the leadership faculty to answer any questions specific to this afterwards. So if you want to ask anything detailed, she can certainly give you more information than I can. But the coursework from that you'd be taking within the program is specific to educational leadership. So you're going to be learning, how to apply those school leadership standards within your school or your district. You'll be practicing that in your internship experiences, and these internships are actually one of the things that helps you to be able to complete this program in a 25-month time frame. So you're able to incorporate work that you're doing within your school or your district and actually apply that to your program while you're completing your MEd, educational leadership. The educational leadership program is going to prepare you for both formal and informal school and school division positions. So it's not necessarily specific to being a principal. And again, Pam can speak to that a little bit more later. What it looks like if you get into the program in educational leadership. So in year one, in July of 2018, you would be on campus here at the U of L for 3 weeks. If you're not from the university, or if you're not from the Lethbridge area, there is an opportunity to stay on campus at the residences if that's what you are needing. So please be assured that there is accommodation available for you. And then starting in September, you would commence your online coursework. And so that would go all the way through to June 2019. You would be back on campus once again in July for another intensive summer session. And those, having the introduction in July on campus allows you to really connect with your peers, connect with the faculty, get a good solid orientation to the program and to the campus and to the cohort, and then continue on in your online. So, both of those types of learning are very important in giving you both the flexibility that you want in your online, but also making sure that you get that face-to-face and that you're able to create those relationships. So then you would continue on online until June 2020. And in your last semester, so July 2020, seems a long way away, but it actually will fly by quickly. You only need to be here on campus for actually a couple of days for your presentations. So for those of you who are coming from further away, you need to be here for the 3 weeks in the summer the first year, 3 weeks in the summer the second year, and then a couple of days at minimum. So it's not too onerous in terms of commitment to come down on campus. Okay, I'm going to switch gears and talk about the MEd General. So we've got a special theme in literacy in globalized Canadian classrooms. So in case individuals are not aware of this, we do switch up our offerings in the MEd General program every year. So for 2018, we've got this literacy in globalized Canadian classrooms. In alternate years, we also have a MEd General in curriculum assessment, and the other study theme we have is a teaching, learning, and neuroscience. So if literacy is the one that you're interested in, then keep in mind that this is not going to be offered again for several years. So definitely a good time to take advantage of this offering. Okay, so this is again a cohort-based program. We're trying something new with the MEd General, and this one is going to be a 25-month program as well. Okay, so it's the same framework as the MEd leadership that we just spoke about. So you're going to be on campus here at the U of L for 3 weeks in July, and then an online component following that. So in this particular program, you're going to have your core courses, your electives, and it's not an internship, but it's a practica. And so you're once again in this program going to be able to incorporate things that you're doing in your school or district and applying that within your program. So that's, again, another way for us to be able to shorten your program to a 25-month time frame. And again, this has got a capstone project or thesis option. So this is a little blurb that we've got within our brochure for the literacy program. So Erica will be up here to answer any questions about specifics for the literacy program, but that just gives you a little bit of a teaser in terms of what the program is about and maybe how it applies to you. Okay, and then we certainly invite you to go and look at our website for the information relative to the program. So please keep in mind you can always get this information from the website, and we're always happy to answer questions in our office as well. So if you're interested in applying to the programs, some of the things that you should keep in mind is that they are competitive. So we definitely recommend you put a lot of thought and effort into the program application. The application is completed entirely online. Okay, so that includes your references. So all you need to do for your references is indicate the contact information for those individuals. And we do ask for 1 academic and 2 professional. And we understand that lots of people have been out of program for a long time. If it's not feasible to provide that academic reference, then you can simply just provide a 3rd professional reference. Okay, application deadline of December 1st. So these programs will be starting in July next year. You will always be notified by April 1st at the absolute latest, but it's typically the first week of February that you'll be hearing from us. Okay, and if you have questions regarding your application, if you need help with the actual application, you can always give us a call in our office. Okay, so the admission requirements, so what does it take to get into the program? So for these 2 particular programs, you do need a Bachelor of Education degree or equivalent, so that would be a 4-year degree. You do need a GPA of 3.0 based on a 4.0 scale, and it's about the last 2 years. So we take the last 20 courses, or the terms containing the last 20 courses, so typically the last 2 years, and that's because by that point in time, typically your GPA has increased. And we do require 2 years of relevant experience, and for individuals that require an ELP, that is required as well. Okay, so what do you need to provide in terms of the application? I'm not sure if you've already been into the online application itself, but it's pretty self-explanatory as you go through. So you do need to upload your academic transcripts. A working transcript is fine, and that's all that we're actually going to utilize for the assessment of your application. If you're from Alberta, the university will actually obtain your official transcripts from your other institution. And we do need an official transcript if you are registering in the program, though. So if you're actually offered admission, you do need to actually provide the official transcripts for us, for admissions office to review. Okay, as I mentioned, the contact information for 3 individuals. If you have questions about whether or not that person is suitable, feel free to give us a call. We ask for a letter of intent. Okay, that's going to speak to what do you want to do with the program? How do you envision that impacting your career? We ask for a CV as well. And again, if you have an English language proficiency test score, then we would need that as well. Okay, so I mentioned this previously, but just to kind of remind you that these are the programs that we're offering in the education stream for 2018. So, the literacy and the leadership we're offering in 2018. And in terms of the 29 intakes, 2019 rather intakes, we'll be offering leadership again, and then it will be the curriculum assessment. And then we presume that in 2020 that we'll be offering the leadership and then the MEd General with teaching, learning, and neuroscience as their study theme. Okay, so most of you have actually, I recognize a lot of faces around here, and I know you've already been up to our offices and speaking to us. And Kevin Mattis, who's out at the front desk, like the booth right now, out in the Wellness Center. Kevin Mattis is the individual that you would normally connect with in terms of applying to the program, and he's the one who's going to lead you through program if you actually get in. So please feel free to contact us. You know, all sorts of ways that you can reach us, and we're happy to answer any questions. And looks like that's it. I think there's a slide missing there, but that's okay. If you have any questions regarding the specific programs, so educational leadership or the literacy program, we do have a couple of faculty members, and actually we've got David Slomp here regarding he teaches within several programs, but specifically curriculum assessment. So if you have questions about the future offering of that program, then we can certainly turn it over to David as well. Anybody have questions? Somebody will ask something. And just so you're aware, if when you ask your question, I'm going to repeat it so that if there's people watching online, then.
What would the difference look like between a capstone and a project?
Okay, so the question was, what's the difference between a capstone and a project? So the capstone, I'll give my little sort of business perspective of it, and then I can turn it over to these folks that from a more pedagogical perspective. But the capstone is run as a course. So you are in a course led by a supervisor. It's offered in that final term. Typically you would work on it in advance of that July presentation, and it's the equivalent of one course. So essentially the amount of effort that's going to go into it is equivalent to one course. A project, on the other hand, is independent. So you're not doing it with your peers, it's just between you and your supervisor and the other committee member. And so the equivalency in terms of course credit, it's equivalent to 2 courses. And so it is more work involved. It will actually also increase your tuition costs because it's an additional course to program. So that will increase by about $500 for your overall program. And in terms of the actual, like what is a project, I can certainly turn it over to these ladies.
In leadership, and Eric can speak to Nancy or David, but I think the 2 words are depth and breadth. So in a project, you will be conducting research in an area that is of interest to you or relevance to the school, but it's probably more practical research. Many people refer to this in the leadership stream as action research. So you will be conducting a research project around an area that is relevant to your interests and your school work. Your thesis is much broader and much deeper. Because of the breadth and the depth of your topic and your inquiry, it will take longer, up to probably 2 to 2.5 years. And so in leadership, if you are exploring a larger area of inquiry, it will take you much longer to not only do all of the literature and the exploration of the conceptual framework around that topic, but then you will do a much more in-depth data collection and research around that topic. There are also 2 additional components that are not evident in a project. One of them is the colloquium, and in the colloquium you actually present to your committee your research plan. And actually that is a public presentation as well. Mm-hmm. So you'll be presenting to your committee as well as to the public the ideas that you have and the authors who are informing the work that you want to do, and your committee will give you feedback about perhaps other areas that you want to look more in depth at or expand in or focus on. They'll give you feedback about what that proposal looks like. Then you'll go ahead and conduct your study, and there will be a public defense at the end of your study where you present your findings and your discussion and a much more thorough investigation of, or exploration rather, of what you actually did as your research project. So I think depth and breadth are the 2 defining factors between a project
and a thesis. Does that help?
Erica?
Erica?
David, you want to add anything?
Well, it's very close to what literacy would be about, and same ideas. And for the capstone, because it is a course, it focuses mostly on a term project that you would, within that course, you would write a major paper. And again, it's led by your interests and a question, an issue that you want to explore, but within a course of 14 weeks or so, and so it's less in-depth in that sense.
Other questions?
Question within that, in terms of the project or the thesis, at what point do you need to contact people you're interested in being your supervisor? Is that done with the application process? What does that look like?
You do not need a supervisor to apply to program. And in fact, we do recommend that you have, I actually can't recall, they're in the policy guidelines, there's actually a number of courses you have to have completed. I want to say 6 before you can actually officially start your thesis. But really it gives you an opportunity to meet several of the faculty members to figure out which one maybe, first of all, is a thesis or project right for you, because it's not for everybody. You have to have very strong writing skills, you know, that you have to be able to want to work independently, because it's not the same as a capstone. Like there's a reason why we offer a capstone. It's because you can come in, take the program, you know, have a culminating activity that still is synthesizing all of the work that you've done throughout your program, but it's done with the collaboration of your peers and, you know, led by an instructor. And that works for most people. So if you're one of those individuals that has a burning desire to answer a question, then maybe a thesis is for you.
But you don't need to decide prior to.
You don't need to decide. It doesn't hurt to start looking at faculty members' research interests, so that's available online on our faculty expertise page. You know, and if you've done an undergrad here, you might actually already have an idea of somebody that you've worked with, you know, in the undergrad program that does have a similar interest. And you can always contact our office as well. If you give us an idea of what you're looking at doing, then we can certainly put you in touch. But often people come into program and they think they want to do a research area in a particular subject matter, and then they're exposed to different areas and they completely change what they want to do anyways. So, yeah. All that, don't put too much time into planning your thesis topic in advance, because you might not stick with it. Yes, question?
I have a question more specifically about the literacy program and just the actual coursework in that program. Like, literacy is such a broad topic, and reading through this, like the different things you can study and focus on there's so many of them. So what is that coursework?
Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly ask that question again. So the question was, what really is the core of the literacy courses?
Yeah, we do actually have a schedule with a tentative outline of the courses, and they include introduction to research. Some of the core courses are introduction to research with a focus on literacy, and then also a course that we call living literacy, so really tapping into your own background and your own place of work with literacies and what you imagine that is important for you and for your students possibly that you're working with.
So you kind of start to tailor.
Sorry?
You kind of start to tailor your studies.
Yes, very much from the beginning. And then we have a course on assessment that David will be offering. We also look at particular kinds of literacies, such as Indigenous literacies and why they are important for all our classrooms, and especially in terms of the new TQS. And then we look at issues of English as a second other language. That's a course that's going to be offered. And so the notion of the different kinds, the diverse literacies that are both in local classrooms as well as that are in the global environment that we're all connected to more and more are the ones that we're looking into.
So you sort of do coursework on all those sort of areas, and then maybe for your capstone or thesis, or
Yeah.
whatever you choose, that's where you kind of focus in on exactly what you're.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
what you're wanting.
exactly.
And you also have the opportunity, so if there is a specific area that you really have an interest in, oftentimes you're not in every course, but in some courses you'll be able to apply that topic to your assignments. So, or depending on what your situation is in your school. So, given an example in Alberta, you could you look at individuals teaching in Hutterite colonies versus somebody who's downtown Calgary, Edmonton, who might have 12 different languages that they're dealing with within their classroom, or just a typical suburban classroom. The settings are very different in terms of what you're dealing with, but you're getting those perspectives from your peers who are experiencing very different things in their classrooms than you are in your own. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
I would like to know if, so looking at your tentative outlines, there's courses that are all already chosen for each of the programs that you're going to be offering over the next few years. I was wondering if there's any ability to customize or like opt out of a class and choose a different class in case one holds your interest, or if those programs are pretty set in stone.
The programs are designed to, so the coursework, and the question was, is there an opportunity to basically change up the program? Typically speaking, applicants may feel like, you know what, I want to take this really narrow focus and this is what I want to look at. And then they get into program and they realize that, oh, there's this whole world of foundational knowledge that I actually wasn't aware of that we need to put in place. And so it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know until you get into a grad program. And so once you get into it, you discover that I need to cover all of this foundational knowledge in order to then, after the fact, study this more tightly defined area. That doesn't mean that you can't incorporate that narrow topic within certain assignments, within a capstone, within a project, within a thesis, and there is the opportunity to also do independent studies with certain faculty members. But the program defined in the calendar is this program. And so you do need special permission from the assistant dean or associate dean in order to do that. And it's not typical that you would take a course outside. And once people get into it, we do field this question a lot, but normally when students get into program, then they realize that it all really is done, the programs are put together in such a way that one thing leads into another. And so by trying to swap out a program or do something by Western Deans, things like that, that they actually are pulling out a chunk that they really do feel is required for that program.
However, let me just give you a couple of examples in the leadership stream that shows how what Sue said you can customize and we can accommodate your interests. So for example, this year in leadership, we have a superintendent. And he is in the cohort with a learning support teacher. Now, they're both taking the same course. But as you can imagine, their take on leadership and the way that they want to meet course requirements are going to be very different. And so we allow you to customize assignments and topics and the approaches that you take to these assignments so that they fit with your context. We also have another person in this cohort who is a faculty member and wants to take a Master of Leadership and a Master of Education in Leadership. And same thing, the big concepts are the same, but he's wanting to explore a bit different specific area than a superintendent or a learning support teacher might. And we're willing to accommodate and work with you and talk with you and work you through what that might look like so that it meets your specific interest while still working within the big parameters and the big concepts that we want you to know and understand around the topic.
I would say too, when you get into your project or theses, that's a great place to bring in people who might not even be in program, like in our faculty. So we have students who, we have a student right now who's doing a thesis in curriculum around foster parent training programs. So we would bring in someone into that person's committee who maybe isn't from the ed faculty but has expertise in that area. So there's ways to expand program at that point. You know, we've got nursing instructors in our curriculum and assessment program, and we'll bring in people from the faculty of nursing or that program in to support committee work for that student. So there are ways to kind of bring in, without having to change the structure of your coursework, to bring in other fields of study if you're interested in that. So.
Okay, any other questions?
I have another one.
Yep. Yeah, of course.
So actually, one of the main reasons why I came today is I wanted to know, so I'm not sold on what program I want to go into, and I don't have a huge interest in admin. And so at first I thought the leadership was like a big no for me, but I've heard from others that it can be awesome. But I would like maybe a little sales pitch versus like curriculum assessment for next year, or I guess the following year.
I'm not
Who's
gonna
up
pit
first?
myself against my
No.
colleague. So you're not gonna be able to get us to say,
But
but I
could you
will
like
say,
some of the focus and what I would hope to get out of the program, like best suited, like what I could get out of the leadership program that would be more unique and more focused as opposed to the curriculum and assessment.
Here's the sort of the foundational statement that we make that first day of the first week of the first month of program. Everyone is a leader. Everyone in schools is a leader. Whether you are a teacher, whether you're a learning support teacher, whether you are an EA, in some way and in some capacity, you are a leader in schools. And so what don't you know and what do you know about the role of leadership, whether it's formal or informal, as it pertains to the operations of schools? So one of the approaches that we take right off the bat is the assumption that whether you think that you have a formal leadership role because your nameplate is on your office, or simply whether you are a leader of children or a leader of colleagues, that there are some basic understandings and skills that are important for you to consider and for you perhaps to develop in your role in schools. We do have increasingly more what we would call informal leaders in program. And that's not necessarily that they are aspiring even to be a principal or a superintendent, but just that they are in informal roles and they want to understand the operations of a school and how they can contribute in informal ways to how a school operates. And they want to understand what that looks like for them as people in various roles in schools. So the fear or even the acknowledgement that you have to be an existing leader or that you want to be a formal leader is, for our cohort, not the case. We do use the guiding framework of the school leadership standard as our big parameter for what leadership writ large looks like, but we also use those competencies to explore what it looks like if you are a classroom teacher and you're leading children, or if you are a classroom teacher and you have 3 EAs that you are leading. So we try to contextualize it so that there is this understanding that we are all leaders, and what does distributed, differentiated, formal and informal leadership look like. So that's a leadership take on it, but literacy?
Well, it was only between curriculum
Yeah.
and.
Oh, sorry.
Of course,
And I would yeah. Erica's in the middle, sitting between the two of them, so you get it there. Please feel free to also touch base with the faculty members, and that honestly is the best way. And we have some fantastic faculty who are always willing to answer questions from potential applicants. And by having those conversations with the faculty members, you'll really figure out where your heart lies. Is it in this camp or somewhere in between? And and it'll definitely make that decision a lot easier once you've spoken to them. So we can certainly set you up with those things. Yep.
I would agree. It's the same philosophy that that Pam talked about in terms of building leaders. We would have students in our program who very much are in formal leadership roles and who very much have no interest in formal leadership roles. and that. And so I think it's a question of what kind of skill set you're bringing. I would say we bring Pam. Pam teaches one of our leadership course in our program because our students want some of that expertise. In the leadership program, they have a course in curriculum that one of our curriculum instructors teaches, because obviously that's an important part of leadership in schools. So, you know, I think, as Pam said, they structure the program around the principal competencies. So there's a real focus on the theory and practice of being a school leader. We don't have that focus necessarily. We really look at understanding curriculum theory, understanding assessment theory. So a lot of the educational leadership types of things. How do you build good knowledge of those disciplines, and how do you carry that into the work that you do in your classroom? So, yeah, I would say we have the same goals. I think it's just slightly different focus in terms of what we're doing as getting there. So, if you really wanted a deep subject area kind of understanding, and you want to use that as a platform for the kind of work and leadership you might do in a school, curriculum and assessment might be an area of interest, because what we try to do is make sure that we have instructors from all the different areas in programs. So you will have instructors with backgrounds in literacy, backgrounds in mathematics, backgrounds in science education, backgrounds in First Nations education. So we try to make sure that you get a cross-section of instructors with those expertise in your program. And you can tailor, just like Erica was saying, you can tailor your focus in, say, a curriculum or assessment course to curriculum or assessment, you know, in music or in literacy or in science education. So I think that would be probably a primary difference.
And just to
I'll give you an example. Right now, we have a leadership student who is doing a project with one of our brilliant curriculum folks around the idea of developing curriculum in religious schools. So she took her leadership core courses, and then was particularly intrigued with this notion of curriculum development as it pertains to religious schools, tagged on to the curriculum person, and is doing her project in that area. So there's so much crossover, and we can work with you to decide at that point, is that going to be a curriculum focus, or is it going to be a leadership focus? I'm supervising a neuroscience student right now who did all his neuroscience work, but wants to know how to lead ideas of leadership in his middle school. So lots of opportunities for you to work with us, and for us to work with you in developing that exact focus and area of passion that you're really interested in, and then we can customize some of those areas of inquiry for you.
Okay, and just a reminder that the program schedules are online, so when you go to the website, the Future Student website, you can see all of those courses in the rotation, so that typically the titles give you a little bit of background into what you would be covering. And again, please feel free to contact our office. We can put you in touch with the faculty member. If you look at the faculty expertise page, then you can see who would be best suited to talk to.
Just the other thing I would say is, I mean, the same is true for literacy. I talked about curriculum assessment. The same is true for literacy. I mean, one of the students in the last literacy cohort that I'm supervising is now the current principal at one of the largest high schools here in the city, and that, right? So, you know, a literacy focus doesn't exclude you from leadership within the district or you know, within your schools at all either. It's you're building a way of looking at schools, a way of thinking about education that's going to be valuable to leaders in your districts. I think regardless of what program you're in, right? I think the key is to find what you're passionate about, because you do earn your degree here, right? And so it's going to require something of you, and if you don't have that passion, it's going to be hard.
Okay, any other questions? Yes.
We'll preempt my question by saying that we're very lucky to have such amazing choices for the programs. I'm wondering if there's possibility for change or addition. So specifically to, most schools are focused on literacy and numeracy. So is there any like inkling of a program like that? Or I guess, like I'm mostly interested actually in neuroscience, I would say,
in terms of the numeracy.
Literacy,
Yeah.
how it.
Not that I'm aware of at the moment. It's not, of course, impossible that this would happen. And of course, if you want to combine those two areas in your own studies, and you are part of the literacy cohort, we would try to make room for that, for you to focus in some of the courses, or perhaps in one of your practica or so, on that particular combination. Yeah.
And could you see yourself would you be most interested in starting down the neuroscience pathway with then a specialized thesis in numerical thinking? Is that where you're going? Or?
She's thinking, wow, that sounds really interesting. Now I do.
Yeah, like even the curriculum part piece would be important because
Yes.
like the math over the curriculums.
Yeah.
Well, all the math, so.
So you can see by that question
Yeah.
that probably what we'd want to do is have a session with you to explore which of the areas might be of most value to you starting out, and then moving you towards this exploration in the area of numeracy, if that was your passion.
And I would say literacy is an area of interest. I mean, of all the programs, you're going to get the deepest, richest, broadest sense of literacy and literacy research in the literacy program, right? One of the interesting shifts, I just finished doing a study of the SLA program, the grade 3 literacy numeracy assessment, and there's not a lot of research out there actually in numeracy as a construct or as a concept. There's a lot of work in mathematics, but numeracy, and what's interesting is literacy is a really valuable jumping off point for a study of numeracy, because when we shift from a focus on mathematics to a focus on numeracy, what we're recognizing is that numeracy is a social process. Very much, and I mean, literacy research has focused on literacy as a social process for a very long time, as opposed to this old focus on teaching kids discrete sets of skills and hoping that they then somehow transfer that out into social practices. But literacy as a discipline has said, no, it's a social practice first, and we learn how to develop those skill sets within that framework. Right? So I think if that's an area of interest for you, getting a real deep sense of literacy and then asking the question, how does what I'm learning about literacy inform the way I might think about mathematics and numeracy, and then working with someone like Rochelle Marinowski, who's an expert in math, you could definitely build an area of focus that could make some interesting contributions. You know.
And always, for the literacy court, the overriding question always is, so what does it mean to be literate in ... in particular in numeracy, or what does it mean for both teachers and students to be or become literate in those areas that we're thinking differently about nowadays. And so it really does go into all different curriculum areas, subject areas. So literacy and curriculum in that sense is really closely connected, so that we want you to ask those questions. So what does it mean? What kind of knowledge do I need? What kind of vocabulary do I need to develop in order to really tap into what's happening in those areas, numeracy and so on.
Okay, so I'm cognizant that we do have another session starting in this room in a few minutes. So maybe if there's one last question. Anybody have a question? And we are going to be at the booth out front in the Wellness Center, and the faculty members are here if you have any questions. And again, you can always connect with them after the fact too. Anybody? No? Okay, well, thank you for coming, and we're welcome to getting feedback in terms of whether or not this was useful for you, you know, things that you would have liked to have seen or heard about that we maybe didn't cover, or things that we did cover that you thought was helpful. And hopefully everybody got a chance to sign the sheet here so that we can make sure that you get any information that we're sending out about application deadlines and things like that. So if you didn't get a chance to sign it, maybe just pop up before we wrap the session up. And thanks everybody for coming.